How are we doing, everybody, and welcome into the SFS channel. In this particular episode, I'll be breaking down 5 players at the wide receiver position that I like starting in lineups here for Week 5 fantasy football. These are guys with good matchups, guys who I expect to have positive game scripts in terms of how that relates to their fantasy success here, and we'll be diving into all of that and more in today's episode. So if you're new around here, make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn the bell on as well, so you can get on in here and get this advice, information, questions asked and answered, and all that stuff right away. Of course, as I just mentioned, the comment section down below is open. So if you guys are looking for advice and opinions on your lineup for this week, put that stuff on down there, and I'm happy to help you guys out with your teams all season long. So we've also got 3 other lineup advice episodes out for today and a Week 5 fantasy football playlist. All that stuff can be taken advantage of on the Sizzle Fantasy Sports YouTube channel, of course, that you can access by dropping down and clicking our logo below this video. So check all that stuff out, you guys. Kick back, relax, and let's dive in. All right, let's dive into Brandin Cooks now. So this is our first must-start wide receiver of this week. He ended up bouncing back last week, as I said in the earlier portion of today's episode. Had a touchdown against the LA Chargers defense. And based off of the line from sportsbooks right now, I'm feeling very confident in my expected game script for this week's Week 5 matchup. You've got a Houston Texans team that is a 7.5-point underdog. Now, I said this in the running back segment. I wish I would have talked through expected point differentials last week more than I did. I think that would have guided my analysis in a bit of a better direction. And I could have, pointed out some of the flaws in the, obviously just the way games played out for our predictions last week. But here we've got a 7.5-point underdog in an expected game. So that's over a touchdowns threshold here, which is important. That leads you to believe that the Houston Texans are going to have to pass late in this football game and consistently throughout 4 quarters in order to keep this a close game. Now, it is a division matchup. That can always be kind of a wrench in things. That can always, make a situation an outlier here. But I do believe that the Jags are going to have a bounce-back week offensively, barring weather conditions here, hang points on the scoreboard, and force Houston to match their level of production in terms of having a productive week through the year. So for Cooks, seeing the signs point back in the direction last week were optimistic for me. This is a Jags team that I don't really have anyone in the secondary that I fear in terms of being able to shut down a very versatile athlete like Brandin Cooks, who can stretch the field vertically and also work the middle of the field as well and get involved in some shorter opportunities. So it's just going to come down to being at the mercy of Davis Mills here. Can he produce? And with those opportunities that I outlined, I think he'll get based off of game script expectations, and the Texans being touchdown plus underdogs. Something I like to look at. Diving to our next player here, let's talk some Drake London. Now, I did talk about having some rookie fever earlier in today's episode with Garrett Wilson last week. I don't think that's the case here with Drake London. I've, checked myself here and evaluated the situation a couple of times, and you've got yourself what I believe is the clear-cut number 1 pass-catching option, even over Kyle Pitts, and the other options in this offense. For Garrett Wilson, it was a weird dynamic last week where, again, I outlined the warning signs. However, I still bid on it in one of my leagues and put him in the flex spot. But you had a situation with a quarterback change from Joe Flacco to Zach Wilson. You had Corey Davis leading the team in targets last week, which was rather odd. A lot of us see him as the number 3 receiver there. And then you had a 7, target distribution for him. Garrett Wilson had 6 and 5 to Elijah Moore. So it was a very even split, but still not how we were expecting things to play out. For Drake London last week, and just like we talked about with Brandin Cooks, he's kind of at the mercy of Marcus Mariota, his quarterback here. But for a guy who is leading his team in targets right now, 32 targets in the first 4 weeks of the season, averaging 8 targets per game, I like what I'm seeing. He only caught 2 passes for 17 yards last week. 7 targets, though. Did have a 28% catch rate. Very, very poor. But the targets weren't good. The opportunity just wasn't there. And for whatever reason, pass rush, just being rushed on throws, not really settling into this game properly. Mariota was a disaster. I think he had like 3.5 fantasy points in traditional quarterback scoring for league. So it was, bottom line, a terrible game for this team offensively. But Drake London still led the team in targets here at the wide receiver position. Was a guy that, again, as we've seen throughout this season, I think can do some really nice things here. So looking ahead to this matchup at Tampa Bay this week, they're 8.5-point underdogs, again, screaming the need for a pass-happy game script. They are not going to win this football game. They're going to trail throughout. They're going to be playing catch-up, and they're going to need to find ways to move the ball downfield. You particularly might even get garbage time where you're just getting soft sit-back coverage, empty calorie yardage against this Tampa Bay secondary. So the first half might look a little rough here. They're playing aggressive press man coverage, blitzing guys from various various places and just killing Marcus Mariota, stay patient. I think that this is a really viable flex play, could even potentially finish as a top 24 wide receiver if he finds the end zone. Drake London for me in this matchup, I really think has some opportunities to do some things well. If we look back a couple of weeks to how this team played Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, they had a lot of yards after catch allowed to that Packers offensive playmaking core here. If you can get the ball in Drake London's hands in space, get him quick passes in the flat, screen passes, and just try and let him run, he's a tough tackle and can do some really nice things there. And again, that stuff might not even matter because late in the game, I think they're going to have to go to him. He could potentially break double-digit targets in this contest. Hollywood Brown here at the Philadelphia is taking on Arizona, so he's at home here in a controlled environment. You can either open up the roof or close things down there in, Glendale for the Cardinals Stadium here. However, the important thing is the matchup. For now, you've got yourself a situation with the Arizona Cardinals where this team, I just don't expect to be super competitive in this game. I think Philadelphia is clearly the more functional offense in 53-man roster right now, and I expect them to kind of control the pace of this game. The Cardinals are 5-point underdogs, so not a touchdown plus threshold in terms of having a need for a pass-happy game script entirely. But I do think they trail it in this game. And I do think that while we still have this opportunity without DeAndre Hopkins on the field, Hollywood Brown needs to be in lineups. He's had 3 straight games with 11 or more targets for this Cardinals football team. He scored a ridiculous, I can't even believe he caught the ball. It was like sandwiched between a defender. He didn't even really turn. He just put his arms out, catches a touchdown pass. That's the type of stuff that we're going to need to see this Cardinals offense do this week. Now, that is not going to play out exactly like it did last week. However, deep shots are fully in play here. Hopefully, volume continues to be a common factor for Hollywood in this matchup. I will note it is a tougher secondary than he's seen in the last few weeks here, so hopefully he's able to overcome that and create separation. But even so, if you're giving me 11 targets, I sure hope you can capitalize on enough opportunities, and he could get more than that if they continue to need to push the football downfield. Rashod Bateman here, this is a one that I'll put an asterisk on for now. I hope this isn't the case, but we could see Rashod Bateman get X'd off the list if he's not able to play. He's dealing with a foot injury right now, so he's day-to-day. It's not considered to be serious, though, so I'm going to stay pretty optimistic about it. But for now, you've got a matchup against Cincinnati in Baltimore with the over-under set at 48 points on the dot. This is important for games where you've got an over or under that is a high number. That points to being a shootout or a high-scoring contest. The reason that this matters is, of course, it's great for fantasy football because the more points you're scoring, the more players are getting in the end zone. That 48 number is crucial because while it's not the highest scoring total over-under for the week, it is tied out of 16 games for third in terms of that category. So the over-under is for, the total points scored between the two teams for the week. This with Rashod Bateman here tells me that, bettors and the sports books, the betting houses are expecting this game to creep up into high-scoring territory. Bateman's a guy I've had my gripes with in terms of volume and usage on a week-to-week basis. The talent is there. He's a skilled playmaker, and if he's healthy, I expect him to walk out there and do some nice things for this team. And then Chris Olave here, I'm continuing to start him. His over-under is set at 46 for the week, so just 2 points lower than that Bengals and Ravens matchup. So for New Orleans here, I love what Chris Olave brings to the table. We saw him produce last week with a different quarterback, that being Andy Dalton. I think he's established himself as a broken-out receiver at this point in the rookie class. No Michael Thomas the last 2 games here, but you do have a player who has seen himself do that on a 3-game streak here of getting back-to-back 13 target games and then walking out, not having that same level of volume, but still finding the end zone and being a productive lineup piece with Andy Dalton in week 4 in London. So he's shown the ability to produce when the number 1 receiver is his responsibility in the week, and he's shown the ability to produce as the second option. I think he's definitely surpassed Jarvis Landry. Michael Thomas is a bit up to debate, but really liking this matchup. Seattle is a matchup that is for the taking. Their cornerbacks do not scare me at all. Their secondary does not scare me whatsoever. This is a paper-thin defense right now, very exploitable. The Saints, while they might not be the most buttoned-up team offensively, can score points and make big plays happen. We'll see what the quarterback structure is for this week. However, I'm feeling pretty good about it regardless, seeing how Dalton was able to go out there and produce last week with Andy Dalton, and then, of course, seeing how he's done with Jameis Winston when he can get those vertical field-stretching opportunities here. So, again, high over-under at 46 points, high over-under for Rashod Bateman, recapping today's video. Marquise Brown, 5-point underdogs at home against Philadelphia. Going to need a pass happy game script there. Drake London, same deal at Tampa Bay, plus 8.5. And then we've got Brandin Cooks, touchdown plus favorites underdogs against the Jaguars. So lots of pass happy game scripts in the works here, or high scoring performances to be expected. Liking these matchups for week 5, liking these receivers and fantasy lineups, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Of course, any questions you've got, concerns, let me know that stuff as well. I'm here to be an open book, help you guys out, and of course, hopefully win your leagues this season. So I appreciate you guys for stopping in today. I'll see you next time. Peace out.